you all please join me in Darshan? Nirvana has innumerable names. It is impossible to give them in detail. I will list only a few. Nirvana is called extinction of passions, the uncreated, peaceful happiness, eternal bliss, true reality, Dharma body, Dharma nature, suchness, oneness, and Buddha nature. Buddha nature is none other than the Tathagata. The Tathagata pervades the countless worlds. It fills the hearts and minds of the ocean of beings. Thus, plants, trees, and land all attain Buddhahood. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. So the passage I just read is from Shinran Shonin, the founder of our school of Buddhism. It's in a text where he is commenting on one of his fellow disciples of Honen. So Shinran was a disciple of Honen, who you can see on the bar scroll at the very bottom. And he had some co-disciples of Honen, and one of them wrote a book that he was really fond of, a short work called Essentials of Faith Alone. So this is a commentary on that. But I wanted to focus on this because of that last line. Thus, plants, trees, and land all attain Buddhahood. What? So I'll get to that in a little bit. But to start it off, this text begins with the kind of fundamental elements of Buddhism. The most fundamental teaching, the core teaching of Buddhism, is about dukkha and the end of dukkha. So we translate that a lot of different ways. What are some translations of dukkha that you know? Maybe over. Suffering. Yeah, that's the most common translation, and I think it was really popular for a century to translate dukkha as suffering. I've mentioned before, I think there are other ways we should think about it, particularly dissatisfaction and anxiousness. I think we live in an age where I use the word anxious or anxiety, and folks are like, sit up and take notice, right? It's a word we talk a lot about. The word dukkha has all of these meanings. It's not just suffering, it's dissatisfaction with the way things are. I don't like what's happening to me. I don't like what just happened. I don't like what I see in the news. I don't like what that person said to me. I don't like how I feel. Right? And the anxiousness about that. That's dukkha. That's the key focus of Buddhism. Dukkha and the end of dukkha. Because in Buddhism, right, the Buddha taught no one is free of dukkha. Everyone here has experienced dukkha in small or large amounts, probably within the last 24 hours, if not likely in the last since you woke up this morning. And dukkha is a universal part of the human experience, according to Buddhism. So this tradition is about understanding our dukkha and helping us get beyond our dissatisfaction and our anxiousness. The ultimate end of that is nirvana. Nirvana is a state free from dukkha. And here in this text, Shinran kind of lays out a big list, which we Buddhists love, a lot of different ways of thinking about what the word nirvana means. Often it's said that nirvana is something you can't explain it and you don't know until you're there. And so the texts talk about it, I'm going to talk about it just briefly, but it's not something we can fully understand until we reach that state of freedom from anxiousness and dissatisfaction. So in this passage, Shinran calls nirvana a lot of things. I'm going to run back through some of them, okay? Nirvana is called extinction of passions, the uncreated, peaceful happiness, eternal bliss, sounds amazing, true reality, Dharma body, Dharma nature, suchness, oneness, and Buddha nature. So in our tradition, we often hear a lot about some of these, particularly true reality. What is true reality? Big question. This is kind of a rhetorical question. If folks want to shout out their answer to what true reality is, that's fine. But it's one of those things that's hard to explain in Buddhism. So in our tradition, we think about true reality as Amida Buddha. This is the way our human minds, caught up in our everyday lives, can think about and grasp true reality. So we look up here, beautiful golden image of Amida Buddha. If you haven't had the chance, the next time you're up for Oshoko and you're bowing, really give it a look. It's a beautiful image. And it's something our human minds can understand, a calm, peaceful figure, a human being that is reaching out to us. They are this image of true reality in our tradition. In this passage, Shinran also talks about the Tathagata. Buddha nature is none other than the Tathagata. That's a fancy Sanskrit word. The Tathagata pervades the countless worlds. It fills the hearts and minds of the ocean of beings. That's us, by the way. The ocean of beings. It fills our hearts and minds. So in our tradition of Jodo Shinshu, we are attuning ourselves. We're trying to catch those glimpses of when all of this, all of reality is talking to us directly. It's in our hearts and minds, and it's pointing us away from our dissatisfaction and suffering. I just want to note, this particular translation uses heart and mind. I think that's really common. We're really used to that, at least in the United States, of separating our heart and our mind. Which part do we do math with, the heart or the mind? Mind, okay? And which part do we feel happiness with? Heart, right? So we have this distinction between our emotions and our thoughts. We actually owe this not to Buddhism, but to the Greeks. The Greeks came up with this, and it's been a part of Western civilization ever since. It's not a distinction that Buddhists make. We don't distinguish heart and mind. Your rational thought and your feelings aren't like two separate things. They're all part of one whole thing. So that's kind of an aside I want to make, because we really easily, many of us fall into, well, you should address that with your rational mind. Stop feeling so much. Or there's kind of a way of kind of looking down on feelings as opposed to thoughts. But in Buddhism, they're all part of the same thing that's happening inside of us. It's our experience. Our experience, our thoughts, our feelings are the same thing. So the Tathagata, Amida, true reality, is constantly trying to give us messages about how to see past our dissatisfaction and our anxiousness. And this leads to the last line of this passage. Thus, plants, trees, and land all attain Buddhahood. What the heck? What the heck? So Sensei has talked about this before. I think he brought in like a metal image of the samsara, of the different paths. According to classical Buddhism, what kinds of things can you be reborn as? And I'm looking over here. Primary school folks. There are 6 of them. 6 different types of things humans, or that beings can be reborn as. I just gave one away, it's humans. In classical Buddhism, what are the other possible rebirths? Ghosts, animals, humans, ghosts, animals. Plants is not on the 6. Yeah, but I'm totally telegraphing, yeah. Thank you for guessing. In classical Buddhism, the hell realms, so one can be reborn in hell. And then one can be reborn as a god or as an angry god. They're 2 different things. The titans, warlike gods. Those are the 6 in classical Buddhism. Sentient beings are reborn over and over again in these 6 realms. These are the existences we face. Many Buddhists today talk about these as states of mind that we can find ourselves caught in. Our greed, our anger, our suffering, our ignorance. But thank you for bringing that up. Plants is not one of them. In classical Buddhism, plants are not considered sentient beings. They don't have a capacity, a consciousness. And yet, Shinran throws that out here. Thus, plants, trees, and land, not even trees, just the earth, attain Buddhahood, attain nirvana, which is awesome to think about. I'll just note really quickly, historically, Shinran was originally trained, he was a monk in the Tendai tradition, which is the massive Buddhist tradition at the time he lived in Japan. The Tendai tradition actually does talk about this from China to Japan, about that Buddha nature, the capacity to attain Buddhahood, is shared even by fences, walls, roof tiles, and stones. not just animals, ghosts, demons, and humans. This has to do with Buddha nature, which is a concept that I'll talk more about in another talk in a different week. But I just want to kind of hover on this for a little bit, this notion that plants can attain Buddha nature. I've got a poem I'm going to read. So this is a poem by Reverend Kenryu Tsuji, who was an early bishop of the BCA. He was the first bishop, the head of our larger denomination in the West. He was the first bishop to be born in North America. He was born in Canada. Older members will remember him. I never met him, but I've heard lots of stories about how cool he was, how deeply he was involved in the spreading of Jodo Shinshu teachings. And he wrote this poem. It's called Listen. Listen. Listen to the voice of the Dharma. Listen to the birds singing in the morning, the wind sighing in the boughs overhead, and the roar of the waves on the beach. Listen to the rain on the roof and the snow falling in the fields. The Dharma speaks to us through the sounds of the world, forcefully and eloquently and beautifully. It speaks of the unending change around us, the immutable truth of interdependence, and the peace in nature. Do we have the ears to hear and listen? Listen to the Nembutsu in the Hondo. Listen to the noble silence of Buddha. I love that poem. So I want to reflect, April 22nd was Earth Day. We just had Earth Day. I'm guessing you had, you did stuff at school around Earth Day, probably. It's become pretty common these days. This passage is interesting because it asks us to change our perspective on plants and trees and land. One way of thinking about our need to care for our climate is that we need to preserve it for what it can do for us. Even this poem thinks about what can nature do for us. The rain falling on the roof, the waves on the beach, they are teaching us the Dharma. And that's wonderful. At the same time, this passage by Shinran says plants and trees and land have a value to themselves. They themselves have Buddha nature. They themselves will attain Buddhahood. They themselves are on the path. So plants and land and trees can be there to teach us, and at the same time, they are there for themselves. And as stewards of this earth, something to keep in mind. So I would invite you to say hi to plants the next time you see one. I brought this spider plant from home. One of the little babies fell off. Amy, my wife, said this is probably going to happen. So if anybody wants a spider plant baby, it's waiting to go home with you. I think that would make Amy happy. So say hi to plants, or say the Nembutsu the next time you see plants, trees, and land. Please join me in worship. Nirvana has innumerable names. It is impossible to give them in detail. I will list only a few. Nirvana is called extinction of passions, the uncreated, peaceful happiness, eternal bliss, true reality, Dharma body, Dharma nature, suchness, oneness, and Buddha nature. Buddha nature is none other than the Tathagata. The Tathagata pervades the countless worlds. It fills the hearts and minds of the ocean of all beings. Thus, plants, trees, and land all attain Buddhahood. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu.